Hello, everybody, and welcome to Compliance Corner Monthly. We are so excited to have you all here today. Today, we are going to talk about A-LIGN's 2025 Compliance Benchmark Report, our special UK and Ireland edition. So I'm so excited to be joined by Kevin Shinners. So Kevin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Kevin Shinners. I head up the international business for A-LIGN, basically the stuff outside of the Americas. As you can probably tell by the accent, I am Irish, based in our international headquarters in Galway.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you, Kevin. I'm Elizabeth Strickert. I'm the Director of Content Marketing. So it is my role to bring these reports to life and share these insights. But today we're going to walk you through some of the findings of the report. And Kevin is going to share some great insights about what he's hearing and seeing from talking to folks in the region, what these insights mean, and some takeaways for your business. So let's start off and talk a little bit about A-LIGN. Kevin, do you want to give a little summary overview of A-LIGN and who we are and what we do?
Sure, yeah. So depending on where you are, it's A-LIGN, A-LIGN, both are right and apparently wrong as well. I corrected both times. But really what we are is a cybersecurity auditor. So we purely and exclusively focus on cybersecurity, don't do finance, we don't do tax. This is our bread and butter. And we have about 5,700 clients now. That's growing rapidly every month. That's on a global basis. We have about 10% of that here in Europe, and that's from a standing start a couple of years ago. So we are very, very quickly. We are headquartered on a global basis in the US, but as I said, our European headquarters is based in Galway, and we have been doing this for quite a while. So as you can see here, for ISO, we've well over 4,000 assessments and certifications issued. We are the #1 SOC 2 assessor in the world. We've well over 30,000 audits completed, and not just doing this remotely, we do this in Europe as well. So for our European-based clients, we have well over 100 European-based auditors as well. So everything that we do is ourselves. We don't outsource this. We don't bring in third parties. This is very much about making sure that we stand behind the value and the quality of what we do. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen, and we will see as we go through this chat as well, is the topic of audit consolidation. So within cybersecurity, the simple days, the old days, used to be we have ISO 27001, and that was probably enough. Really, the world is changing very fast, and it's a case of keeping up with that and keeping up with the new frameworks, the new laws, the new requirements that you have, as well as the ambitions of growing into new markets and what that means for additional frameworks as well. So the reason we've put this benchmark survey together, it's the first time we've done it specifically focusing on the UK and Ireland. We do it for the last 5-6 years on a global basis. We wanted to do it this year on UK and Ireland because it is one of our fastest growing regions globally. And it's something that we've seen a lot of interest in from our clients. And we've taken a different slant to the global side of things. We've asked some of the same questions, but obviously, depending on the laws, frameworks, and legalities within this region, we've asked some questions that are only pertinent to this region as well to make it as relevant to here as possible. Our global cybersecurity benchmark survey, we've about 1,000 people that we ask. For the UK and Ireland, we've well over 100. I don't know exactly the number, but it's well over 100. Because we wanted to get a good understanding, a good assessment across different industries and different sizes of companies, what they are seeing on a general basis, and looking at the topics and looking at the trends across here as well. And hopefully based upon the experience that we have, based upon the size of the client base that we have. And these, by the way, range from your 1 and 2 person startups all the way through to the biggest enterprise level companies in the world. So we have a very good understanding of this, but we wanted to get an independent verification from the marketplace to make sure that we can translate that information to a wider audience as well, to hopefully help people make more informed decisions.
Yeah, that's perfect, Kevin. And that's what we'll jump into today. Talk a little bit about why we're focusing on the UK and Ireland, and then we'll go through three key insights from our report. So, just to give a little teaser of what we'll talk about today, we'll talk about the quality of audit reports and the audit experience. We'll talk about some of these emerging regulations, Kevin, that you've already mentioned, and how that's affecting the region. And then we'll also talk about, the elephant in the room, navigating AI. This is really having an effect on the way everybody's thinking about their compliance programs, the way everyone's thinking about running their business. So there's a lot of great insights we can get into. So you touched on this a little bit before, but I wanted to give a little bit of a history of the benchmark report. This is A-LIGN's fifth year doing a global report. And we survey about 1,000 people, as Kevin mentioned. The goal of the report is to get a pulse check on the industry. What are cybersecurity and compliance professionals, what are they dealing with? What are the challenges they're facing? What are the concerns they have? What's working for them? What frameworks do they care about? And it's an opportunity to not only give us at A-LIGN some insights into what our customers and prospects and the industry at large are thinking about, but also give organizations an opportunity to compare themselves to their peers. It's always great to take a look out in the field and say, what do other people care about? Are they facing the same challenges as me? What are emerging regulations or emerging frameworks that they're thinking about? And how can I incorporate that into work that I'm doing? So this report has taken many shapes over the past 5 years, but I feel like we really got to an amazing place this year by opening up globally. And as Kevin mentioned, we have about 125 respondents from the UK and Ireland to get some insights into this region specifically. So, Kevin, I know you talked about this a little bit, but what do you think is like the most interesting thing about UK and Ireland in particular, and why we chose to do a regional report for this region in particular?
I hate questions like that because it's like pick one of your babies. If I kind of step back for a second and just look at why we do what we do in general, like the reason we exist and the reason we have a massive client base and we keep on growing is ultimately the work is only like you mentioned. Unfortunately, there's a card element to this. The card element is the people might want to grow. So, like as I said, my region is outside of the US. But if you want to do business with companies that are in the US, you pretty much are going to be required to have a SOC 2 report. So if you don't have that, you have lots of questionnaires. It makes it very difficult to scale. You may have to hire more people within either operations or cybersecurity to complete those questionnaires. So really, the world has kind of pivoted a little bit. So where a few years ago, a lot of people were looking at cybersecurity kind of risk management as increasing cybersecurity posture, kind of full stop, and that was it. I think a lot more people now are aware that it actually isn't a cost center. Like if you look at even the recent issues we've had with Marks and Spencers, like in terms of conservative estimates, they've lost about £750 million in terms of market value in a few days, and about £350 million worth of lost revenues. That's a pretty significant breach. But it wasn't something that actually happened in Marks and Spencers. It happened within their supply chain. And we've seen this before in the UK with BA, Boots, BBC, same thing. They got breached through their supply chain as well. So you can increase your cybersecurity posture as much as you possibly can, but you're within this big supply chain yourself. So more and more people are being conscious of the impact that has upstream and also downstream. And I suppose the real big stick approach to this is the regulations. They're requiring people now through things like NIS2, through DORA, through the EUA Act, they're requiring people to move faster than they may have done in the past. And for both NIS2 and DORA, they're built off of I suppose a template which is ISO 27001. So in high level terms, there are 10 components to NIS2, and each of those components can be on a baseline level met by ISO 27001. You can go deeper into disaster recovery, you can go deeper into certain areas, but ultimately the idea is if you have ISO 27001, you've met a lot of the baseline components of NIST 2. Exactly the same applies for DORA. There are other things you need as well. There's ongoing monitoring, there's penetration testing that you have to do in addition to that. But ultimately, it's trying to create that baseline level of not certainty, but risk management across the board and risk tolerance across the board. So you have, on one hand, an increased cybersecurity posture. You then have the laws that are telling you have to be more cybersecurity aware. You are then looking at new markets like the US or other places to try and win more business as well. But this all comes as a cost and as a consequence, because nothing replaces what you're doing today. So if you're looking at doing SOC 2, well, that doesn't mean you can replace ISO 27001 with SOC 2. It's an and, it's not an or. And then if you're looking at AI and the new ISO regulations for AI as well, it's an and again. So this starts to strain and this starts to have an impact on your internal operations and how you actually go about doing this. So if you move away from the questionnaires and then you say, well, we'll meet the certifications that we think we need, how the hell do we do that? Because that means we have to meet every one of those individually and independently, which creates an awful lot of hassle as well. So within the UK and Ireland market in particular, it's one of those unique places where if you're looking at it from a regulation perspective, EU AI Act, NIST2, DORA, they're obviously all impacting Ireland as part of the EU, but they're all impacting UK as well because it has a very big footprint with clients in the EU. So it's a requirement for that to also meet those laws and those regulations. If you want to win new business, either within the US or in other regions, you're required to do other frameworks or other regulations that you may not have done in the past. And then if you look at AI, we can talk about it in a lot more detail, but there's a lot of focus in the UK in particular about it being an AI hotbed and investments in infrastructure that have just been announced by the UK government to facilitate that and to add on to what's already there, both in terms of research and in terms of the AI startups that are already there and are some of the biggest in the world. It's a very, very unique place to be right now because it has a number of fingers, a number of different pies, but it's also a set of problems that people are still trying to figure out how to solve. And that's where we can hopefully help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really the intersection of a lot of the challenges and the opportunities in the space right now. So feels very apt to be talking about it. We got a quick question from Eric that I think we could touch on before we move on, Kevin. You talked about Marks and Spencer and BA and some of the other data breaches and issues throughout the supply chain. And Eric's question is, how deep in the supply chain do we need to go when we're thinking about risk management and thinking about those risks to the business? Like, what's your recommendation to people when they're thinking about how they need to control risk throughout their supply chain?
Yeah, a really good question. And I suppose the problem is how long is a piece of string? It depends on the business you're in, depends upon the supply chain that you have and how dependent you are on different elements of it. But like as a very simple anecdote, NIST2 and DORA, they're now obviously pretty significant European regulations. Neither of them say you have to be ISO 27001 certified. It's not a requirement, but it takes components from the control sets in ISO 27001. It says if you meet these controls, then you can obviously meet certain characteristics of it. What we're already starting to see is that there's, I suppose, a trust element is probably the best way of putting it. So if you're within my supply chain, Elizabeth, and I'm dependent upon you, I can turn around to you and say, are you NIST2 compliant? Well, it's like GDPR. Like there's no way to prove. You can say, yeah, I am. But how do I know you are? How can I be certain that you are? Because now more than ever, I am conscious in the same way as Eric is conscious that I am dependent on my supply chain and that I can have the safest setup possible. But if there's a breach somewhere down along that chain, it is the weakest link in that supply chain that will get breached. So what we're already starting to see is people coming to us who are being told by their probably larger, more important customers that they need to become ISO 27001 compliant. So they need to have that certification in place to prove that they're meeting the base criteria for NIST2 and or for DORA as well. So I think it's not necessarily just a case of saying you have to go one level down or two levels down. It depends on the company, it depends on the setup. But I think every element within that chain is dependent upon every other element within that chain as well. There's a list of dependencies throughout. I think it's the requirement and responsibility of everybody within that chain to hold everybody else accountable, because it has become so visible in so many unfortunate ways recently, specifically in the UK, where supply chain risk is really big and really material. And it doesn't matter, you can be the biggest brands in the world, you can still be very, very significantly impacted by that supply chain. So I think it's up to the responsibility of everybody to hold their own supply chain accountable, who then have to hold their supply chain accountable and keep on pushing that down through. But I would say as well that like if you think maybe 20, 30 years ago, if somebody had a university degree, it was probably a differentiator. It probably helped them to get a job in ways that wouldn't help other ways. These days, an awful lot more people have third level education. So it's seen as like a prerequisite. We expect you to have it, but what else do you have as well? I could kind of look at ISO 27001 in a very similar fashion. Like that's great. You have that. You've got an understanding. You've got a language we can talk to you about, which is called ISO 27001. What else do you do? How else do you make sure you are secure? How else to make sure you are efficient? Because I am very conscious as the auditor that some people think it's this big, we'll panic for 3 months, we'll do everything we can to get to that audit date, make sure everything is okay, and then the audit is over and you put on the sweatpants again and the belly comes back out and you do nothing. It shouldn't work like that. The whole idea of the audit isn't to have this one point in time exercise. It is to build a language, it is to build a cadence about how people do it and how they operationalize it. And then the audit is almost like the cherry on top. It's just a verification that you're doing all those things internally. Completely appreciate not everybody works like that. Unfortunately, we are starting to see that people who don't work like that are beginning to get found out. There's a lot of vulnerability testing that a lot of companies do today. There's a lot of penetration testing, which nefarious actors are doing to see where the leaks are and where the low points are. And that will continue. And with AI, I think that will get worse, better, whatever we want to describe it. There will be more of it. So I think it is very much in everybody's interest to make sure that they are holding themselves accountable, but also holding their supply chain and asking their supply chain to hold their supply chain accountable and building that baseline level of trust and then adding to that as well.
Yeah, I think that's great, Kevin. And I think that really sets us up to talk about the next topic, which is if everyone's getting ISO 27001, we have that baseline and it's checking the box, then like what is the differentiator? And so one of the things that we focused on in this report is the idea of quality. So it's not just about checking the box and saying that you're certified, but it's about making sure you're choosing an auditor and having a final report that is high quality and is going to build that trust. So we asked questions of this group in terms of what are they looking for when they choose an auditor? You'll see here that they're looking for an experienced team, a high quality report. So Kevin, wanted to get your input on quality and what you think are the differentiators and why should people care about the quality of their auditor and their final report?
Yeah, this is one of those things where, well, quality could mean anything to anybody. It's a really kind of subjective topic. But I'd probably go back to, well, why do people get certified in the first place? It is no longer just to have, and it's an important thing, but it's just to have an improved cybersecurity posture. It is to meet new regulations. It is to win new business. It is to streamline internal operations. It is to do all of these things together. And I think the reality is this is a very, very big market, but we're not even scratching the surface of what cybersecurity risk management will become. I think this is going to become very, very big, very, very quickly. And like any market that's moving very, very quickly, you've got a number of different camps. You've got it's the whole, do you want to move fast? Do you want to have quality? Or do you want to pay the appropriate amount of money? Because you can't have all three of them at the same time. Quality is really important, but not necessarily for like if you're looking at these things here, experience auditing, report quality, they're all good, but it's actually back to how does this impact my business? How does this help me as a company? I think if you're looking at, well, I want to increase my cybersecurity posture. Clearly, if you can speak to an audit team who understands your type of business, who has ideally worked with companies similar to you in the past, although as an auditor, we can't directly give you advice, we can certainly give you feedback on how similar companies in a situation to yourself have tackled similar types of problems. Like I've had situations where companies have come to us after having been very candid about it, a Big Four auditor working with them previously. And every year it was a junior auditor that they'd train up basically. Next year it would be a different junior auditor that did train up, and it was a tick the box exercise. And I had one guy in particular who vented at me because he was saying, we've got this new auditor, doesn't know what he's doing. We're in a unique type of space. We don't have all the controls that you would have as a normal SaaS company, and they were. And this guy had a literally checklist. He was checking the box, and he had one box that he was checking. And he was saying, "Well, show me that you have this." And the client was saying, "Well, we don't do that. That's not relevant to us in any way, shape, or form." And the response was, "Prove to me you don't do it." He was like, "How do I prove to you I don't do something? I just don't do it." So I think having experience auditing doesn't mean very much unless it has a direct impact on your business. And where it has a direct impact on your business is how much time do you have to spend with that team, getting them to understand your business, getting to understand who you are and what you do. In a similar way to, as you go through the year, your business changes. You might have M&A, you might have a new region you want to break into. Having the same experienced audit team with you year over year. So one thing we try and do is keep with the same clients, the same audit team every year, so that during the year you can pick up the phone and call them. And it's not a generic email address, it's pick up the phone and call them, so that you can ask them, based upon this change, will that have an impact in our scope, our ISMS, how will that impact our budgets? And having that partnership, having that relationship is incredibly important. So I think that experienced audit team is really, really important from that perspective, because it has a direct impact on your business. If you then want to break into new regions and new markets, how have other companies done the same type of thing? What frameworks have they taken on board that they may not have done, or they maybe shouldn't have done? What ones have they come back and said, these are better frameworks for us to work on, and it's helped us to gain more business? All of that becomes incredibly important. And then I suppose the last one is, as you grow and as you develop into more mature companies, there are more requirements that you have to meet. So how do you then consolidate those requirements together? So to take a very simple example, for ISO 27001 and SOC 2, there's about a 60 to 70% overlap in the evidence you need for both of those. And that's huge. So you can either go, if you want to do business in Europe and in the US, you can either do ISO 27001 with Auditor A and SOC 2 with Auditor B and literally double your workload. Or you can put the two of them together, reduce your workload by 60 to 70%, and get twice as much impact and bang for your buck from it, while streamlining your operational effectiveness internally massively as well. So I think, back to the quality thing, quality means different things to different people. I think if you look at the experience of the audit team, if you look at the ability for that audit team to work in as streamlined a way as possible. So in the last probably 3 to 5 years, there's been a pretty significant proliferance of GRC tools, readiness tools, SaaS tools that help clients get ready for audits and then work with them throughout for things like ongoing continuous monitoring, tools like Drata, Vanta, Audit Board, ISMS Online, DataGuard. There's a lot of them out there. And the whole idea behind them is they help you to get ready for the audit faster and then work with you after you're ready for the audit to do that ongoing continuous checks. But if you've got an auditor that doesn't work with those platforms, that doesn't know how to work on that platforms, you've got this breakdown in the middle again. It's like a different language. I've done this over here, but it doesn't help me to do this over here as well. So same thing again, quality means different things to different people, but I think it ultimately comes down to how do we help clients to save time, energy, and resources to allow them to do more with less? And then how do we give them feedback loops, either when they want feedback and other clients are doing certain things, or when there's a change to themselves personally, and how that can impact what they do and how they do it. As I said, we've 5,500, 6,000 clients today, and we have we're in, I suppose, a lucky position that we send a survey to every client after every audit. How do we do? What we improve on? How do we get better? And rate is 1 to 10. And I think we're currently about 96% client satisfaction rate. Our average tenure for clients is about 7 years, which is low, but it's low because we're adding so many clients on all the time. It keeps bringing the number down. But the thing which comes back over and over and over again is that clients will start off with their biggest pain point today. And that could be, we want to break into the US market, We have one client we have on the hook. We can't get them on the hook. We can't get to sell to them until we're SOC 2 compliant. We need that right now. Sure, we can help you with that. What else do you guys do? Oh yeah, we've ISO 27000. We're meeting this to DORA requirements as well. We're looking at AI, we do penetration testing. The list goes on and on and on. And it's not a scalable way of running a business. So the idea is to help clients to consolidate those things together. So I think quality means all of those things together. And it's not just transactional. It's not just, let's get you up and running as quickly as humanly possible, just cause, with the least number of controls, to help you to tick a box and put a badge on your website to say you've done it. That's not much use to anybody, because at some stage it'll come back to bite you because you haven't gone through the rigors that you should do to be cybersecurity aware and conscious. And also, like, your clients aren't stupid. They will look for that rigor. They will look for that detail. And more because of supply chains that we've just talked about, they are looking for that at a higher bar, higher threshold than they would have done in the past. So I think quality is coming to the surface. And as Warren Buffett said, when the tide goes out, you see who's wearing pants.
Yeah, no, I think there's so many good points there. And I think a lot of it, Kevin, comes back to that experienced audit team, right? If you have auditors who know your industry, they can make the process smoother. They can help give you recommendations or feedback on strengthening your security posture overall. They can have these partnerships you mentioned with GRC platforms that can streamline the audit process. They're more experienced, so they're going to look at more controls. They're going to have a higher quality report. They're going to go to that depth that is important. And an experienced audit team has a good reputation. So people see your name on the front of the report and they say, oh, that's A-LIGN. That's a brand that I know and trust. I think that makes a really big impact. We also talked a little bit about audit consolidation and the idea of bringing multiple frameworks under one umbrella. And you talked about SOC 2 and ISO 27001 having a 60% overlap. Are you seeing a lot of other organizations that are helping to bridge that gap? Are there in the region, are there other organizations that can do both SOC 2 and 27001?
I'm sure there are somewhere. We don't see many of them. And in particular, if you're doing business in the UK and you're looking for ISO 27001, the expectation is that you're UCAS accredited. So UCAS being the accreditation body of the UK. If you want to do business with any part of the UK government, that is the expectation, is that you are UCAS accredited, which we are. We're also ANEB accredited, which is the US version of the same thing. They are the two largest ISO accreditation bodies in the world. So we tick both boxes basically for clients. We're also the largest SOC 2 assessor in the world. So if you're in the UK and you want to do ISO 27001 and SOC 2, I am absolutely open to correction, but I'm not aware of another auditor who can conduct ISO 27001 for UCAS as well as SOC 2 together. So how we do it internally is we've got a very, very big audit team. We've got teams who are accredited to different bodies. So you have the ISO team, SOC team, PCI team, et cetera, et cetera. So we'd assign an ISO auditor and a SOC auditor to a particular project. They would work together to review the evidence in tandem. If they need to have a conversation with the control owner, so let's say head of HR, head of IT on certain controls, we'd have that kind of conversation together once with the control owner, and then they both go back and complete their assessments and their certifications, and you're done. So we still have to complete both assessments in full. But if you don't do it that way, the other option is auditor A and auditor B. And let's say you're the head of IT and you have an auditor who comes along and says, show me how you keep laptops secure outside of the building. And you have to go through the IT policies and procedures, HR procedures, the IT systems that you have in place for that. And then you kind of sit back down, go back to your job, and next thing, ding dong, another person from SOC auditor goes, can you show me how you keep that laptop secure inside of the building? And it goes on and on, depending on the number of frameworks that you have. It's nonsensical, but it happens today, every single day of the week. And unfortunately, there's people on this call today that are looking at that going, that's how we operate. That doesn't make any sense. So the idea of consolidation is to allow you to streamline that and to be able to reuse that evidence multiple different times. Because it's the same evidence. You shouldn't have to keep on repeating yourselves multiple times during the day or during the year. It should be able to be used once across multiple different frameworks. Because the reality is any new framework that comes out to the market, it's not new. It stands on the shoulders of the stuff that comes before it. So HR policies and procedures, they're all pretty standard. AI, a little bit different. There are some AI slants to it, but in general, it's pretty standard. Same with IT policies and procedures. There's a certain subset of components that a cybersecurity audit will need. And then it goes and you put a different lens on, you look at different angles. But in general, there's that big overlap, especially among the more common frameworks. And it's just about making sure that people are aware that you can join these things together. I have had conversations with people who've used, we'll call them ISO auditors, and they are not aware that you can do this consolidation. And they're not aware because their auditor is not telling them. And their auditor is not telling them because the next question the client would ask is, this makes perfect sense. Can you consolidate for us? And they're going to have to say no. So it's not in the auditor's best interest to be telling the clients that you have a better way of doing things. Whereas I suppose our job is to evangelize this, is to make sure people are aware that you can and should be doing what many companies around the world are now doing, and consolidating your audits. Because when you look at NIS2, DORA, UAI Act, we haven't even talked about ISO 42001 yet, and everything else that comes out of that, it is pretty unmanageable to say, we're just going to keep on hiring more people to manage this, because it doesn't make sense. It's the most expensive resource you can add is more people. So if you can streamline your ways, you certainly should be looking to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Kevin, and sets us up perfectly for the next theme, which is talking about these regulations. So we've talked about UAI Act, NIS2, and DORA. So one of the questions we asked folks this year are like, which of these laws are you anticipating will impact your business? So you can see here, AI Act, NIS2, DORA are the common ones. But we also talked about ISO 27001 as the foundation for a lot of these regulations. And 85% of the businesses that we surveyed said that they're planning to do ISO 27001 in the next 12 months. So Kevin, can you talk a little bit about these regulations, the impact they're having, and how we recommend that you address them?
Yeah, and this is one of the kind of more interesting ones that I saw. I didn't expect the EUA Act to be top of the pile, primarily because it's still in its infancy of getting implemented. Like NIS2 is what they categorize as important or essential institution is under scope. So the fact that more people are seeing an impact of the EUA Act than NIS2 is a bit enlightening, I suppose. DORA is specific to the financial marketplace, so that should be a bit lower than NIS2. But it just shows how quickly the AI side of the business is moving. Like if I go back to, let's say, January of last year, February of last year, we were the first auditor in the world. And this is just February of last year. We were the first auditor in the world to go into accreditation for ISO 42001. So ISO 42001 is the ISO certification for AI. And it's basically similar to ISO 27001 in NIS2. It's a predication of what a lot of the EUA Act is based on ISO 42001. So February of last year, we were the first auditor in the world to go into accreditation for ISO 42001. Nobody was talking about it at that stage. It was like we were unique, we were unusual, we were weird. Why are you guys doing this? But by the time we came out of accreditation and we brought Synthesia, who were one of the top 20 AI companies in the world, they're based in the UK. We brought them through the accreditation with us as our kind of starting client. They came through in August, September of last year, and they wanted to be the first in the world. They wanted to prove that based upon the fact they're a massive AI video company, they wanted to prove that they were looking at the ethical nature of AI and treating that as something that they saw very seriously. So they wanted to be the first. And they also wanted to create a differentiator between them and their competitors, I guess. Whereas if I fast forward, and that's only September of last year, so what's that, 9 months ago? If I fast forward to now, it is becoming so topical. It is everywhere you look. Like even yesterday, Keir Starmer in the UK announced a £1 billion investment in AI infrastructure. The NVIDIA CEO and Jensen Huang commented that the UK is a perfect place for AI takeoff, and it's in its Goldilocks moment. This didn't exist 18 months ago. Now it's everywhere. Now everybody's talking about it. But you need to show, especially for AI, you need to show the ethical nature of what you're doing. There are a lot of potential nefarious consequences to using AI. So it's about making sure that people are using it in the right way, in the more appropriate way. So that's definitely gone from 0 to 100 miles an hour very, very quickly. And that's in addition to ISO 27001. So as you can see here, 85% of companies are planning an ISO 27001 UK audit or certification in the next 12 months. That wasn't anything close to that 2 years ago. That's primarily being driven by NIS2 and DORA, as well as things like Marks and Spencer's, where they're seeing issues up to the supply chain, and then that's being pushed downstream. That's becoming very, very impactful. So you create a baseline level of certification with 27001, and then think of ISO 14001 as a similar skeleton with a different skin. So for ISO 27001, it's got an ISMS, an information security management system. So it's like, think of like an umbrella of how you set up your company to look at cybersecurity. The ISO 14001 regulation has an AIMS, an AI management system. So similar layout, but everything has an AI slant or an AI tilt to it. So you have to do this separately and differently for obvious reasons, because it's all looking at it from an AI perspective, which adds to the burden of your team's requirements internally as well. So yeah, this is the stick. These are now new. These have all appeared in the last 12 months, where they're now required and they were not required before. It is moving those laggards or those slow movers up to the starting line. And this isn't the finish line. This is just getting to a stage where everybody's working in the same place and entering into the same race. Then it's about who speeds out in front, who becomes the one that showcases, demonstrates that they are looking to be materially better, quote unquote, than their competitors, because that's where the differentiation is starting to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit about folks who are trying to be, early in a lot of these spaces to use as a competitive differentiator. So when you're talking to clients, like, what are those drivers that they're having? Is it about, getting new customers by being first in some of these spaces? Is it about the fear of not complying with these regulations, the fines, the lost revenue? What's kind of the driving force behind why people are so concerned about these regulations and why they're growing their compliance strategies?
Yeah, it's back to the very first thing that we talked about, why be certified. So improve your cybersecurity posture. The leaders will take the lead on that and say, we want to be the first in the world to show this and demonstrate this because we see the value in doing this. Then there are people who want to grow their market share, either in this region or in a new region or in a new industry, and they want to demonstrate that they have met these obligations to help them to streamline that. Often the way that works is they might want to grow into a new marketplace, and they start growing in the marketplace, and the sales team gets stopped because they're being told you don't have this baseline set of obligations. But here's a 250 question questionnaire to fill out, and then that might take you a day, a week, a month to do that. Obviously, it's an investment of your team's time, and every single client goes, right, here's a different questionnaire, and you have to fill out again and again and again. And it gets to a stage where you kind of go, you know what, this isn't worthwhile, keep on doing this. We need to streamline this and reduce our sales cycle from 3 months to 3 weeks and cut out the questionnaires in the middle. That's where a lot of people start to move from and move to once the minimum viable product becomes viable. Because otherwise you're going to keep on adding more and more people just to fill out questionnaires, and that doesn't make an awful lot of sense. You have the new regulations that you have to meet as well if you want to do business in those new regions. And one thing which you should talk about as well is the implications if you don't meet those regulations. So for the first time I've ever seen is that there's direct consequences for NIS2 and DORA on senior management within companies. So there's personal liability associated to those senior managers if they don't meet the obligation of these new laws. I've never seen that before. I've been in EU regulations for 20 years. That's compelling, and something that people are starting to sit up and take note about, because it's no longer company-based. It is senior manager based as well. So I think it is pushing that forward. So when you look at those things together, looking at increase your cybersecurity posture, winning new business, meeting new regulations, and streamlining internal obligation, all of those things together have a big material impact on your ability to do business. To take an anecdote internally, we do an offsite every year, and we bring some clients to our offsite. And 12 months ago, in January, 12 months ago, we bought 3 companies who effectively all looked at themselves in terms of the CISOs as cost centers. Well, we need to do these things. We have to do this. We're trying to get headcount for it. It's hard to do. This year, we brought Synthesia, we brought DocuSign, we brought Butterfly Networks, and all 3 of them call themselves sales enablers. So is it very much a differentiation of how they used to look at themselves to now looking at themselves as we're in a position to help sales to grow our company and grow revenues for our company. So we still need to do our baseline obligations of meeting cybersecurity posture, but there's these other levers that we can now pull as well. So they're looking with their sales team on what new regions do we want to grow into. Within those regions, what are the certifications we would need, and then stack ranking them based upon revenue. And that's a very, very different mind shift to even 12 months ago. So I think people are starting to realize that this is something that can actually add value to their company rather than be something that's looked at as a cost center all the time.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And yeah, it was really interesting hearing from all of those customers about how, even though some of the negative impacts may be coming in, there may be these fines, there may be that personal liability, although, the stick might be getting more difficult. I think people are looking for those opportunities to, how can they utilize this as have that business value of compliance. And I think that, yeah, definitely the tide is shifting there. And it's good to see, it's good to see that there's opportunities for CISOs to think more strategically and not just be, again, checking that box, trying to avoid the negative consequences, but what are the positive consequences that they can get from a strategic compliance program. Let's talk a little bit about AI. There's a lot here. We kind of have, this has been a thread running through our conversation today, but this is impacting every business. Both from the way that they operate, the new risks that are associated. And so we asked people about their AI compliance policies, what their the impacts on their business. But the stat that I think is most interesting here is that almost 3/4 of people we surveyed said that they're planning to pursue an AI audit or certification in the next 24 months. So we talked a little bit about ISO 42001. I know there's a few other AI frameworks out there, but 42001 certainly leading the way. Does this track with the conversations that you're having in the region and people really looking to demonstrate their responsible and ethical use of AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like a broken record now, but I'll almost go back to the start again. And if you look at, well, why do people want to do this? Part of it is the EUA Act and meeting the obligations and requirements there. If it is for that, you almost need to define what AI is. So some people think, well, if I'm not using an AI system, then I don't have any need. Within the EUA Act, any type of regression model is also included as a definition of AI. So a lot of people have AI systems that they don't think are AI systems. In addition to that, this is one of those really weird ones where in other companies, it could be the head of IT has has the biggest security posture because they have access to most systems, and they're the ones who obviously need to be as concrete as possible in terms of their cybersecurity posture. For things like AI, it could be the person who answers the door, who has access to every single person that comes out and all of their personal details, and they use ChatGPT. Not even a company account, could be their own account. All of a sudden, that creates implications for the company as well. So people may not realize that they have these systems in place. We have seen situations where people have had AI systems that they used for screening, for interviews, that were creating biases in terms of who they put forward for interviews and who they didn't, based upon nothing to do with the person themselves, but their zip code or their postal code or other parts of their CV that were being used and then bundled together with other people's data. And then people were being filtered in or filtered out off of the back of that as well, and creating pretty substantial biases. So things that people don't think are obvious and don't think are very clear from an AI perspective. they're lurking in the background, and they are becoming more and more available to people at all levels of the company. So even if you don't have any AI company system, even if you don't have anything in the company that is using AI, you still have people who are using their personal ChatGPT accounts. I remember two engineers in Siemens a couple of years ago put in to ChatGPT some pretty sensitive data for their own company to do some regression testing. And guess what? That went into ChatGPT and went elsewhere. This is things people have to be aware of. So I think it's gone from nothing, and people don't think it's a big issue, to moving very, very fast. And even each iteration of ChatGPT or cloud or wherever people are using, they're moving very, very quickly as well. So I think there is very much, and you can see it here in the data, people are realizing that and are moving very quickly to try and catch up with how fast the technology is moving, to try and wrap their hands around it to some degree and say that they have captured some level of risk, and they are trying to mitigate that risk where possible as well. But AI is not going away. It's just about making sure people are using it as appropriately as possible internally. And that's obviously becoming a big challenge. But if you're looking at nearly 3/4 of the people are looking at becoming certified in the next 12 months, not just we need to wrap our hands around it, but we need to show that we're demonstrating that we are looking at using AI appropriately. That is a massive, massive shift. So within ISO 40001, there are 3 levels. There's developer, producer, and user. So I build an AI engine, or I take an AI engine that's built, add it into my system and sell my system, or I just use GPT or other systems. So there are different levels within ISO 40001 that people can become certified to as well, because obviously there's different levels of risk. So it is trying to capture that risk as well as appropriately as possible. So it's moved from nothing to 100%, or not, well, close to 100% very, very quickly. But we're not even scratching the surface of what this can and will be over the next while. And that's very, very interesting. That's
Yeah, absolutely. We did this survey in September of 2024. And so I think that we will continue to see, I'm excited for the next year's survey to go out as we see that this number is going to continue to grow. There's going to be a bigger focus on AI. And, I think that, like you said, probably up to 100%. Most people even said if they weren't planning to pursue, they were thinking about it. They were open to it if there were, rules and regulations that required it. Very few organizations said, I'm not worried about it at all. It's certainly top of mind.
The biggest litmus test is, are you starting to get AI security questionnaires now? So are you now starting to get people asking you, how are you guys treating AI internally? That's the next thing that people can see. I have to do this for every single client. I can't scale my business. Then I need to get certified as well. And that's happening very, very quickly too, because the biggest companies in the world, Google, Microsoft, they're all now ISO 40001 certified. So what do you think is going to happen to their supply chain? They're going to push that down along as well.
Yeah, we're seeing kind of the same trends happening, in different areas and kind of repeating itself. But again, going back to, why it's so important to mitigate that risk in every area of your business. We talked a little bit about Synthesia, but wanted to put this slide up here and talk a little bit about the story of us working with Synthesia. They were one of the very first companies to get ISO 40001 certified. So Kevin, can you talk a little bit about our experience working with Synthesia and, what other companies can learn from them as leaders in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So for anybody who doesn't know Synthesia, they are one of the largest AI companies in the world. They are, if you haven't seen their website, go to the website, you can use a demo. It's very cool. But basically what they can do is you can give it words and it can create a video, looks completely realistic. And that obviously has implications as well, because that can be used for very nefarious purposes too, where people could use it for not so good reasons. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to be the first in the world to be certified within the AI video company. They wanted to show that they take this very, very seriously, and it's something that they saw as a banner ad for themselves as to how they see this, and it's something that they wear with pride, that they do take this as a pretty significant part of their business as a whole, because obviously for them, people have to trust that they can use the system ethically and use it well. And if they can't trust it, there's a big significant consequence, especially for AI videos. So they came to us saying, we want to be the first in the world. I said, you'll be one of the first. I can't guarantee you'll be the first. I said, what we need to do to show we'll be the first. So they were very bought in from day one. And this is way back last year. And then as we brought them through, really, really good clients to work with. They came through in, I think, August, September of last year. And they wanted to show this. They added it to their website. So there's pages people are building called trust centers. So it's basically a sub-page within your web pages that shows your security profile, what badges you have. So they wanted to show that, they wanted to demonstrate that, they wanted to show it to new clients, prospective clients, that it's something they were leading the charge on. And they've gone from strength to strength ever since. They've been, I think it was UBS that announced they're going to use ChatGPT and Synthesia to create avatar profiles for their biggest economists, and use that as a new type of AI video use case. I think in end of Q1, starting Q2 this year, they announced they passed $100 million ARR threshold. So they're growing very, very quickly. I'm not saying we had anything to do with that. I am saying that because they took value in this, because they showed the leadership in getting AI certified, that it helped to demonstrate that to clients and the prospective clients. It helped to build trust, and obviously it helped to bring those clients on board as well. So they're a really, really good use case from our perspective, because they're really good clients to bring through the accreditation process with us, and obviously then having them as a valued client afterwards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as they've grown as a business, I think it makes sense, right? A lot of people are nervous about AI. And so you go to Synthesia's website, you see what they can do, you see, wow, they can transform all this information. But I think often the question is this safe? Are they going to take my data? Like, what's happening here? And so for them to immediately be able to point and say, look, we've already been ISO 42001 certified, even if, people aren't familiar with what that is, knowing that they have a third-party certification helps to, ease that feeling that people have when they're looking for a new vendor. And so I think it's really smart for these AI companies to be, thinking ahead, being the first to adopt. But to your point, Kevin, there are, anyone in the AI supply chain, from a producer, a developer, a user, everyone can benefit from 42001. And so, I think we're going to continue to see more companies, not just AI-driven companies, pursue 42001 certification.
Yeah, I think, like, if you look at the traditional product adoption like roadmap, you have the leaders, people who, like Synthesia, want to be first. You've got the bulk in the middle, and you've got the laggards. But because of the speed of AI, we're seeing all of this getting very, very compressed. So even the data on the previous page, people who may not want to become certified or wouldn't have thought about it, they're now looking at going, we need to. We have no choice about it. So it's moving very, very quickly. And it is becoming an essential part of keeping up with your business.
Absolutely. So we only have a couple of minutes left. So want to quickly wrap up here before questions and let folks know that today we only covered a few of the insights from this report, but the report is available to download on our website. You can scan this QR code or check out this landing page to download the report in full. There's a lot of great insights in here that you can take and apply to your business. We'd love to hear your feedback on the report as we improve and think about next year's report, the questions we want to ask. So please go download that report and share your feedback with us. Kevin, want to jump into, I think we have a couple of questions to look at here. One from Alexi that I think is a great question. He said, what are your thoughts on the global trend of SOC 2 becoming a more checkbox exercise rather than a meaningful assessment? Talked about how are we addressing this shift in, SOC 2 being the baseline to ensure that we still have high quality and integrity in the audit process?
Alexia, I like you. It's a really, really good question because we see the same thing. So as I said at the start, we are the largest SOC 2 auditor in the world. We've been doing this for a very, very long time. Any firm that is AICPA, is a member of AICPA in the US, can technically issue a SOC 2 report. It does not, and I don't mean this in a bad way, it does not matter what you think, and it does not matter what we think. In my region, so EMEA and APAC, the people who do a SOC 2 report want to do business in the US. So what matters is, will your report be accepted by the companies you want to do business with in the US? And we know there are auditors out there that are blacklisted, that they will no longer have those reports accepted. One of the questions that we've asked in the global survey of the benchmark report last year was, how many of your low quality audits have been accepted? So to be clear, we do not offer low quality audits. We set the standard, we set the bar for SOC 2, and we set it high, which is why a lot of the large and leading companies use us. But we asked for those low quality auditors, how many of those reports have been rejected? And 34% of those reports last year, we were told, were rejected. It was 32% the year before. So we are seeing that growth. I think a lot of it comes back down to the check the box exercise that people go through. Some people are 2-person, 5-person startup. They want to do business in the US. They've been told they have to do a SOC 2 report. They don't have any knowledge around it. They want to get there as quickly as possible. So they get there as quickly as possible. But that means you're not looking at all the controls. It means you're not doing the rigorous testing and checks that you should be doing. And unfortunately, what's happening is they're going through a lot of that work with we'll call it a cheap and cheerful auditor, and the reports are getting rejected. So all that work is meaningless. And they have to go back, and we get this, unfortunately, a lot, where people are coming to us afterwards, after having that experience with a different auditor, and they now are being told, you need to use an experienced auditor like A-LIGN, because it's not acceptable. I see no reason why people should think it is acceptable to lower the bar like that. The whole reason for doing the reports is to maintain a high level of cybersecurity awareness and posture. You want to grow your sales, absolutely. You want to do all that, but it can't be at the consequence of reducing or eliminating the value of the report in the first place. So we don't have any time or tolerance for that whatsoever. We need to make sure we maintain that level, and we do. And ultimately, it's up to companies out there who are looking for these reports to reject those reports. If they see that it doesn't meet the quality of standards that they would expect, to simply not accept them, because I wouldn't if I was in their shoes. The whole idea of, once again, back to the supply chain, is you're becoming more exposed than ever before to what other companies are doing. And if they're not treating their work ethically, and if they're not treating their company's cybersecurity posture as highly as you would like them to, then it may not be the company you want to work with. And until people hear that messaging and get it loud and clear, there will still be people who will try that. There will still be people out there who will offer those reports. But I think it's up to everybody's, it's in everybody's best interest to push back on those reports, and highlight it in exactly the way you've highlighted in on this call today as well. And make sure it is something that people do not tolerate, people do push back on, and ultimately that will stamp it out. Because at the end of the day, there is an awful lot of value in those SOC 2 reports. There's a lot of detail in what is available, what is not available, where people have gaps, or where people have to resolve those gaps. But if people are not doing that checks and balances, then it will become worthless. We certainly don't want that to be the case. So we will continue to lead the light on that and be the standard bearer for SOC 2.
Amazing. I think that's a great place to end. Kevin, do you have any other parting thoughts you'd like to leave people with before you wrap today?
You're not alone. I think it's the biggest one. A lot of people come to us who have different auditors for different frameworks, and they run out of bandwidth, can't hire more people, get disillusioned, get burnt out. We see this an awful lot. There are easier ways. There are other ways you can do it. So if people wanted to simply just talk about how other people are doing it, we're happy to kind of go through that with people as well. It's a challenging environment, but there is light in the end of the tunnel. There are other ways of doing this, and we have, thankfully, as I said already, with 5,500+ clients using us, and a lot of very happy clients, we're hopefully proving that this can be done and can be done well. And we will obviously work with other clients doing the same thing.
Awesome. Well, with that, we will wrap up. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Hope you got something out of this, and looking forward to hearing your feedback on the report once you all read it. So, Kevin, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.